All right, let's break down what's really going on. Imagine this. The king is shedding tears with victims of a violent attack in Manchester, while any hope for peace in Ukraine seems to be evaporating right before our eyes. The British police just conducted their biggest ever raid against shoplifting gangs, which really just shows you how deep that problem runs in the UK. You're also about to find out why your chocolate isn't really chocolate anymore, why criminals might be getting released from prison early, and how a regular London pub can turn into something straight out of a Wild West movie. Oh, and apparently you can use coffee filters to clean your windows. Britain on a Tuesday, folks. It's a mess of contrasts, tragedy, absurdity, the grandeur and the fall of an empire, all rolled into one. I'm Andrew Meatrich, and this is your unfiltered look at the UK for Tuesday, October 21st. I spent years on the inside of a major well-known media corporation. I saw firsthand how the real stories got bent and twisted to serve a specific narrative, and I just couldn't be a part of it anymore, so I walked. Now I'm independent, I say what needs to be said, and I bring you the stories that truly matter. And because I'm independent, I rely on you. If you get any value out of this, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you're able, consider becoming a channel sponsor. It's your support that allows me to keep doing this, to keep digging for the truth without a corporate agenda breathing down my neck. It means the world to me. Let's start in Manchester, where King Charles visited a synagogue that was the site of a horrific car and knife attack on October 2nd, an attack that resulted in the tragic loss of 2 lives. The monarch met with survivors from the Jewish community and first responders, expressing his deep sorrow for what happened and thanking everyone for their courage and swift action. Among those he spoke with were a security guard named Andrew Franks, Yaoni Finley, who was mistakenly injured by police, and Bernard Agmang, who was hit by the attacker's vehicle. Charles also laid flowers at the synagogue, emphasizing the importance of service and community unity in difficult times. His visit, which drew a large crowd of residents, was a clear act of moral support for Manchester's Jewish community. But while one part of the royal family shows compassion, another remains a source of endless scandal. The Prince Andrew saga just never ends, does it? He's still all over the front pages. Just look at the cartoons the papers are running. One shows Andrew saying, "His Majesty has bestowed a new honour upon me alone," and the order he's wearing is labelled the Order of the Gutter Great. It's a biting parody of the prestigious British Order of the Garter, but instead of symbols of nobility, it shows a street grate with a hand reaching for it. The name itself just screams irony. Instead of elite honour, it's all about filth and lost values. The core of the story is that Prince Andrew hasn't paid rent on his mansion, Royal Lodge in Windsor, for 22 years. He lives there with his family, and according to a 2003 lease agreement, he's only required to pay a symbolic fee, which one newspaper called one peppercorn a year. This was after he supposedly spent £7.5 million on renovations and another million on the lease itself. Meanwhile, the market value for renting a place like that is estimated at around £260,000 a year. The contract runs until 2078, and the Crown Estate can't terminate it early or sell the property. After King Charles cut off his brother's annual allowance of £1 million, Andrew's sources of income have become a mystery. Officially, he only has a naval pension of £20,000 and investments valued at about £3.8 million. Remember, his renunciation of the Duke of York title was a direct result of the scandals connecting him to Jeffrey Epstein. And you can bet the royal family is living in constant stress, just wondering what else might surface because of him. That's exactly why the Times published a cartoon showing Andrew going to confession with the king screaming, "No, Andrew!" You can only imagine the drama unfolding behind the palace walls. Speaking of drama, remember that story from a couple of months ago where 2 Ukrainian citizens allegedly set fire to Keir Starmer's house? Well, 21-year-old Roman Lavrinovich and 35-year-old Petro Pochinok have pleaded not guilty at the Old Bailey Court in London to charges of conspiracy to commit arson against the UK Prime Minister's property. They're accused of organising fires in May at Starmer's home in Kentish Town, as well as targeting his former car and another property in Islington. A third defendant, Stanislav Karpiuk, appeared via video link but didn't enter a plea. The trial is now set for April of next year. It's been reported that British special services are investigating possible Russian involvement in these incidents. It seems some people are trying to channel the spirit of old Soviet-era partisans, burn the fascists, but the reality is far more complex. Now let's shift to the international stage, because a major story that has the papers buzzing today is a serious setback for peace in Ukraine. A preparatory meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, which was supposed to hash out the details of a peace agreement for Ukraine, was abruptly cancelled. This has seriously escalated fears that the second summit between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin could be derailed entirely. According to sources, the two sides have hit major disagreements on how to end the war. Moscow is reportedly demanding additional Ukrainian territories and the country's demilitarization, while Washington is pushing for a freeze of the conflict along the current front lines. The leaders' meeting, scheduled to take place in Hungary, is now hanging by a thread. Rubio is allegedly advising Trump not to go, believing Russia's position is unchangeable. Amid all this, the Kremlin has stated that the talks weren't postponed because they were never formally agreed upon in the first place, and that Putin is, in principle, ready to fly to Budapest via a roundabout route, avoiding NATO airspace. Though interestingly, Bulgaria has said it's willing to provide an air corridor for the presidential plane. Adding another layer to this, the UK's Defence Secretary John Healey gave what was clearly a very important speech for him at the Guildhall in London, announcing a new course for European security. He delivered a whole lecture, stressing that the world has become more unstable since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Chinese actions near Australia, and conflicts in the Middle East. He announced that the UK will increase its defence spending to 5% of GDP by 2035 and will double its investment in drones to £4 billion. Healey also announced the creation of a coalition of the willing to send international forces into Ukraine after a truce, an increase in military aid to Kyiv to £4.5 billion a year, and plans for joint production of Ukrainian interceptor drones. The minister called on NATO countries for deeper integration and readiness to unite their forces to deter threats, once again naming Russia as the primary threat. And here's how the press, specifically The Independent, interpreted his speech. European troops are ready to send a contingent to Ukraine after a possible truce is reached between Presidents Trump and Putin. With Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky expressing his willingness to join these talks, it's a massive development. According to Healey, this coalition of the willing, created by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, involves 26 European nations that have developed detailed plans to deploy multinational forces to secure Ukraine's borders. The preparation for this has apparently been going on for 6 months, involving over 200 military planners from nearly 40 countries. London is reportedly ready to spend over £100 million on such a mission. All right, let's take a quick breather from all the negativity. The Metro newspaper printed a life hack today. Apparently, a growing number of homeowners in the UK are using coffee filters for something other than coffee. They're using them instead of paper towels to wash windows. Experts give 3 reasons for this switch. The filters don't leave behind lint or streaks, they don't tear when they get wet, and they're much cheaper than paper towels. To get a good result, you just spray on some glass cleaner and wipe the surface with a filter. For larger windows, you might need a few, or just bigger filters. They also suggest doing an initial wipe down with a regular towel and then polishing with the filter. It's a simple trick that could save you time and money and get your windows sparkling clean. By the way, if you have any household life hacks of your own, share them in the comments below. And now, some news for those who love to dance. A new music and cultural club called Utopia is set to open in London's Barking district. It's a massive venue with a capacity of 4,500 people, created from the renovation of 3 warehouses and a courtyard, a project costing £500,000. The space, located on a former industrial site near the River Roding, will host concerts, festivals, exhibitions, and community events. Inside, there are 3 halls with capacities of 800, 800, and 200, while outside there's a courtyard with a bar, seating areas, and street food. The club is the brainchild of music industry veterans Michael Hughes, Nicky Gordon, Will Patterson, and Tom Ranger. The first parties are scheduled for Halloween. This opening is a rare bright spot for London's nightlife, which has seen so many clubs close down recently. We had our little dance break. Now let's get back to the serious stuff. A Romanian far-right politician, Diana Șoșoacă, has threatened to break Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's legs if he attempts to speak in the Romanian parliament. In a Facebook post, she declared that Zelensky should not speak in my parliament and about my parliament, stressing that the MPs are the sole representatives of the Romanian people who are allowed to speak there. Șoșoacă, known for her pro-Russian and anti-vaccine views, was previously barred from elections for her support of the Kremlin and is currently under investigation in 11 cases, including Holocaust denial. The Metro newspaper covered this story in detail today. She recently attended a Friends of Russia gathering in Moscow, where her nationalist message was well received by the participants. Looking at her photo, I can't help but think she probably could break Zelensky's legs. This is just wild. Now, let's turn to the UK's Shadow Justice Secretary, Robert Jenrick, who made a pretty bold statement. He said the UK must ban the burqa to defend its values and preserve them for future generations. He's the first shadow cabinet member to support such a measure, arguing that full face coverings, along with Sharia courts, undermine the foundations of British society. His stance was backed by Home Secretary Suella Braverman, who demanded an immediate ban, citing the example of Italy, where Giorgia Meloni's ruling party is preparing a law to prohibit the burqa and niqab. Similar laws have already been passed in France, Belgium, Austria, Denmark, and Switzerland. Now, a little note from me on this. Think about it. For the last few years, Britain has allowed a massive influx of people who support wearing the burqa, many arriving illegally on boats, but with the support of both the French and British governments. Now, at a moment when public anger is already at a boiling point, they suddenly float a law to ban the burqa. What do you think the result of that could be? Let me know in the comments. Meanwhile, a City of London police officer, Andrew Jacks, who posted sexist, homophobic and crude jokes on X, formerly Twitter, including jokes about a woman in a park and Prince Andrew, is keeping his job after a disciplinary hearing. He posted the derogatory content between 2012 and 2014. The disciplinary panel deemed the posts outdated and in some cases not a breach of professional conduct. So what did he write? Well, tweets like, "Rape is a terrible thing, especially Turkish rape." He also shared a joke. "I know a man who ate a chicken before cooking it for Prince Andrew. The chicken was dead before it was Ed." And he shared a secretly taken photo of a woman with what he called the biggest fake tits while she was with her child at a playground. The officer was found guilty of breaching standards of respect and professional conduct. The result, Jacks was given a 5-year disciplinary warning. Police leadership stated that his behavior was unacceptable and undermines public trust, even though the posts were from a personal account. What a message that sends, right? Before I forget, if you're finding this report valuable, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps push back against the algorithm. Now let's see what we're eating. British candy makers have started replacing some of the cocoa in popular chocolate bars with vegetable oils due to soaring prices and poor harvests in supplier countries like Ghana and Ivory Coast. Now, bars like Club, Penguin and Wagon Wheels are sold with the label chocolate flavored, just like those crab sticks are crab flavored. Pladis, the company that owns McVitie's, admitted that their bars contain more palm and shea oil, but insists the taste hasn't changed. Take a close look at the packaging next time. You might be surprised. This reduction in cocoa is linked to raw material prices more than doubling and a 10% drop in cocoa imports to the UK over 2 years. At the same time, the trend of shrinkflation continues. Chocolate products like Quality Street and Cadbury Roses assortments are getting smaller while their prices are increasing by up to 30%. So the tin of candy is smaller, there's less candy inside, and the price isn't just staying the same, it's going up. While that's happening, the London police have carried out their largest ever operation against organised shoplifting gangs, arresting 32 people and seizing thousands of stolen goods worth hundreds of thousands of pounds. Over 2 days, officers raided more than 120 shops suspected of buying and reselling stolen items, shutting down 9 of them. The raids uncovered caches of mobile phones, electronics, cosmetics, and food products. The operation, codenamed Thyden, involved 300 police officers and was a joint effort with trading standards inspectors, firefighters, and border agents. Some of those detained are also accused of immigration offences and drug trafficking, which explains the border agents' involvement. According to London Mayor Sadiq Khan, this action demonstrates the authorities' resolve to combat the rise in theft and dismantle the criminal networks that trade in stolen goods and undermine community safety. Let's hope these kinds of arrests continue. And then there's this. A mass brawl broke out at a Wetherspoons pub, the Ravelston, in Barnet, North London, complete with flying chairs and glasses, looking like a scene straight out of an old western. The conflict started around 10 p.m, when staff tried to remove a patron who appeared to be intoxicated. Video footage shows a bartender ultimately tackling the man to the floor, while a security guard narrowly dodges a thrown chair. About 5 people were involved in the brawl. One hit another with a glass, and another glass was smashed on the bar. A 40-year-old woman was reportedly injured, though there's no official confirmation. The police arrived after the incident, but no arrests were made. An investigation is ongoing. Now, back to the international chessboard. An article in the Morning Star examines the economic motives behind President Donald Trump's policy on Ukraine. It alleges that he previously made a deal with Kyiv authorities for U.S. access to Ukraine's natural resources in exchange for weapons. However, Russia's recent successes on the battlefield, according to the author, now threaten these arrangements. European aid to Ukraine is dwindling, and NATO, as noted by British Field Marshal Richards, would need to intervene for Kyiv to win. The author concludes that Trump is guided by pragmatic interests and is trying to profit from the situation when what both countries really need is genuine peace, without the involvement of NATO or the US. Another piece in the Morning Star claims that the declared truce between Israel and Hamas is fictitious, as Israel continues massive strikes on the Gaza Strip, resulting in the loss of dozens of civilian lives, including children. Hamas accuses Israeli forces of 80 violations of the agreement. While Israel claims it is targeting those who cross a yellow line, the renewed bombing was reportedly triggered by false news of a Hamas attack, which was later retracted. Within the Israeli government, pressure is allegedly mounting from radical politicians demanding a continuation of the war and the expulsion of Palestinians. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump has reportedly backed away from his peace initiatives and proposed resettling Gaza residents in other countries in the region, which the Morning Star author sees as a repetition of Israeli talking points about the supposed non-uniqueness of the Palestinian people. And as you probably remember, a major outage of Amazon Web Services, or AWS, on October 20th left over 1,000 websites and apps worldwide inaccessible for a large part of the day. Snapchat, Lloyd's, and Halifax banks, games like Fortnite, and the Duolingo app were all affected. In total, users filed over 11 million complaints about the problems. Late in the evening, Amazon announced the issue was resolved. Experts noted that the incident highlighted the danger of the world's digital infrastructure being overly reliant on a few major cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. They argue this concentration of services in the hands of monopolists makes the economy vulnerable and requires decentralization and local alternatives. Finally, let's talk about crime here in the UK. The Conservatives have warned that more than 2,000 prisoners convicted of rape, stalking, and child molestation could be released early under a new sentencing bill the government plans to debate. The bill introduces an earned progression scheme, allowing inmates who show exemplary behavior to be released after serving just one-third of their sentence under enhanced supervision. The Labour Party argues this is necessary due to critical prison overcrowding. But the Tories have called the initiative a betrayal of victims and have proposed an amendment to exclude those convicted of serious violent and sexual offences from early release. The government has promised to build 4 new prisons by 2032, but the system remains near its breaking point. There are about 87,000 inmates in a system with a capacity for 89,000. So let me ask you a question to wrap this all up. Today we learned that a police officer who wrote vile jokes is still on the force. A prince tied to Epstein is living in a mansion almost for free. A couple of Ukrainians are accused of arson, but Moscow might be pulling the strings behind them. So who is actually running this country? Because if any ordinary person did these things, they would face serious consequences, no question about it. If you're asking yourself that same question, you are not alone. Subscribe to this channel where I ask the uncomfortable questions out into the void, but you can discuss them in the comments. Hit that like button if today's report hit the mark. Share this video because you know the YouTube algorithms don't exactly promote this kind of news. I'm Andrew Meet Rich. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow when we dig even deeper.